Stardew Valley is a game about relaxing and taking as much time as you need to get your goals done. Now, what if we stripped that away and gave ourselves a time limit to make as much money as possible, and for once in my situation, make an aesthetically pleasing farm? Well, that's exactly what I did. I gave myself 100 days in Stardew Valley to make as much progress as I could, which turned this peaceful farming game into a game focusing on strategy and planning. So let's get started with the first day of the first season, spring. On the first day, I got my parsnips and started cleaning up an area outside the house before planting the parsnips. Then, after some more cleanup, I was out of energy and thought now was the perfect time to go make an introduction to some of the townspeople. The next morning, I planted green beans before setting out to the beach to get my first fishing rod, and then I just spent the whole day fishing. On day 3, I had my first bit of rain, so I didn't have to water any of the crops. Instead, I decided to add a little pathway to the entrance of the farm, but my crops are already in the way, so I'll have to come back to that once they've grown. For the rest of the day, I just did more fishing. Day 4 consisted of more fishing until I could afford the first backpack upgrade, giving me 24 inventory slots now. And then I just cleared out more of the mess on the farm on the evening. The next morning started with Marnie at my door, asking me to adopt a dog that she found, which I did, so now we have our first pet, Boochie. Then I harvested the parsnips that I planted on day 1, and then after doing that I could start working on my first actual plot for crops, which gave me a fair amount of room for now. Then I was shown the community centre by Lewis, but unfortunately I can't fix anything up yet because I don't understand French. Then, once heading to bed, I levelled up for my first time in farming. Due to levelling up in farming, I can now make scarecrows to stop crows from destroying my crops, so that came in handy very quickly. I also planted some potatoes, so there was a bigger variety of crops growing. I then went to speak to the wizard so that I could understand the French writing in the community centre. So then I could start making some actual progress fixing it up. It turned out, to get started, all I needed to really do was go foraging for items that spawn during spring. But today's goal was to explore the mines a bit, and on the way there, I found a leek, which is one of the 4 items I needed. I didn't even make it to floor 5 before running out of energy for the day, but I did get some copper, so there was a positive. And I also found a daffodil on the way back to the house, so there was the second item I needed. I woke up to creepy Clint being at my doorstep, but for once Clint being at my house was a positive because he gave me the blueprints I needed to make a furnace so that I could smelt ores that I got from the mines. I then went to the community centre and handed in my leek and daffodil, so now all I needed to find was a horseradish and dandelion. But for now I just went back to the mines. Before going to bed I made a furnace, just so I had it there in the future when it's needed. On day 8 I spent most of the day looking for a horseradish and dandelion, and luckily I got one of the 2. Then, since I didn't have much time left in the day, but a whole lot of energy left, I decided to spend the rest of the day fishing. A lot of parsnips grew during the night, so I harvested them. Went to deposit the horseradish at the community centre, and then I sold my parsnips, and with the earnings that I got, I bought some cauliflower seeds, potato seeds, and more parsnip seeds. After I planted and watered them all, I then stumbled into some dandelions, and then went to the community centre to finish up my first bundle, which unlocked 2 other sets to work on, the fish tank and the pantry. So I spent the rest of the night fishing. While leaving the beach I ran into an oyster, which I needed for the crab pot bundle. I also caught a sardine for the ocean bundle, and a bream for the night fishing bundle, so day 9 was a very big success for me. Before moving on to day 10, you might be thinking what stops you from just fishing non-stop until you catch everything you need for the same bundle? And same goes for other bundles. Well, that's because let's say for the foraging bundles, it requires 4 foraged items from each season, spring, summer, autumn and winter. And same goes for fishing bundles, certain fish only come out during certain circumstances. For instance, a walleye only comes out during autumn when it's raining, after midnight. So you kind of have to play some kind of waiting game and semi-plan out what you can do for each season. Anyway, let's continue. I spent all of day 10 spelunking. While fishing outside of Leah's house, I caught 2 fish that I needed for the river fish bundle, the catfish and the shad, and I instantly added them into the bundle. Then I went back to fishing for the rest of the night and refused to go home until I caught an eel, which I did. So I was happy that I got all the night fishing bundle done. Well, all of it that was doable for a long while at least. Day 12 started out with 2 unseen before crops growing finally, some green beans which grow continuously until the end of season, which kind of ruins my path plans, but that's fine. And some carrots grew, also some potatoes, but I've already sold at least one of them earlier due to some mixed seeds, so it's not really as special. Before selling anything, I added the eel to the night fishing bundle and my green bean and potato to the spring crops bundle. Then I finally headed to the store and sold what I had left, which gave me enough to go to Willie's and buy an upgraded fishing rod. I then headed up to the lake near the mines and fished for a bit, catching yet again 2 fish I needed for the lake bundle. I caught a bullhead and a carp. More crops grew, and I put them in the selling bin. Yeah, that bin next to my house, I just drop items in, and at the end of the day they get sold for full price, which is really useful and something I probably should have mentioned a lot sooner. I also started smelting my copper I've collected from the mines finally. And it was taking that long I decided to add a second furnace. When I headed to town, it turned out to be the Egg Festival, or otherwise known as Easter. And I got into a race of who can find the most eggs in 52 seconds, which is oddly specific, but due to me not being blind and this mainly being against kids, I won the grand prize, which was a straw hat, which from here on out I wore with pride. On day 14, I carried the spare wooden stone that I've collected from cleaning up the farm to the community centre for the construction bundle, which knocked a lot off of that, but now all I needed was an upgraded axe so I could get some hardwood, but I wasn't really in a rush for that, and for Hayley's birthday I decided to give her a daffodil, which she liked enough to be grateful. Other than that, I was kind of just walking around for the rest of the day aimlessly trying to figure out what to do next. Day 15 was another harvest day, and I put all the profits into potatoes. I then stumbled into a sibling battle between Emily and Hayley and sorted that out. I then headed over to Clint's to upgrade my axe so I could fix up my farm quicker. So while I was waiting for that to be worked on, I headed back to my farm and planted the potatoes, and then for the rest of the day I just went to fish in the river. I went down into the mines for the entirety of day 16 until I got to floor 25. I headed back to Clint and got my copper axe. I then headed back to the farm to cut down the big tree stumps and get them out of my way, and also get the hardwood I needed for the construction bundle. I also got a mussel from the beach to add into the crab pot bundle, so I did that and then put the hardwood into the construction bundle, which completed that one, unlocking the boiler room, which I already had one ingredient for the blacksmith bundle, a copper ingot. Then I just fished the rest of the night away. I spent most of day 18 fishing. Day 19 I was mining the whole time, trying to get far enough to start getting iron. And I got enough iron for 1 ingot. I started day 20 out by putting iron ore into the furnace, and then I could finally harvest the cauliflower that's been growing for a long while. I headed straight to the community centre and finished off the spring crops bundle with the cauliflower that I just grew. And finishing that bundle unlocked the bulletin board, which is items that some of the townsfolk have requested. I went back to the farm and grabbed my iron ingot, and then I put that into the blacksmith bundle, and then went mining for the rest of the day, getting to the ice section of the caves. All the potatoes grew overnight, and the rest of the cauliflower as well, so I went to Pierre's store and hit 10k gold. I then sat down with Abigail and played some video games for a bit, before having to get back to work in the mines. But before going to bed, I went to the community centre and put 10 bat wings in the adventurers bundle. The mines were getting much tougher now, so my normal pickaxe isn't cutting it anymore, so I headed to Clint's and upgraded to a copper pick. Then, after going into Hayley's house, I had to prove how strong I was by opening a jar for her. After that, I headed back to the farm and did some more maintenance on the farm. I spent all of day 23 fishing. Then I went back to the farm and made my first crab pot to capture some crabs. Or, well, pretty much anything. And put that in the river in the town. Then I added some tappers to the trees. Day 24 started out with Demetrius coming to my farm and asking if he can mess with my cave, which sounds weirder than I wanted it to actually. He wanted fruit bats in there, or mushrooms to grow in there, and stupidly I said mushrooms, which I think was a huge mistake on my part, and I don't think there was any way to change that. Then I went to the flower dance where I asked Abigail if she wanted to dance. She then declined me, so it wasn't looking great so far. Then I asked Hayley and she said yes. So the dance started and then it just ended, and somehow that took us to 10 PM. I headed back to Clint's to get my copper pickaxe, then I went to Robin so that she could build me a coop, but it might be a little while before that was done, so for the rest of the day I went to the mines. During the night I got level 5 in farming, so I got to choose if I wanted more money from crops or animal products, and I went straight for crops because, for now, I'd have little use of the animal products. While the copper pickaxe was better than the regular one, it still wasn't as good as I needed it to be, so I went back to Clint and had him start working on a steel one with 5 iron ingots and 5,000 gold. While this was being worked on, I went back to the farm and did some more work on it, adding a path through the fenced off crop area and cut down some trees. The crab trap caught a crayfish, so I went and put that in the crab bundle, and while mining I got a frozen tear, so I went and put that in the geologist's bundle. When I woke up, Robin must have finished the coop overnight, and the sapper also had some pine tar which was needed for the exotic foraging bundle. And then I looked into that bundle and mushrooms were also needed, so I finally went and checked out the cave that Demetrius worked on a few days ago. to see if that had any mushrooms I needed, and to my luck it did, so I grabbed them and headed over to the community centre, handed in the red mushroom and tar. I then headed to Clint's, and on the way I got a snail for the crab pot. Then I got my steel pickaxe and headed over to the mine for the rest of the day to test out the pickaxe. While in the mines I killed a ghost and got a solar essence, then I left the mines and headed to the community centre. I put the snail in the crab pot bundle, finishing that one up, and then I unlocked the vault, which requires money to progress through. So I put 2,500 gold for the first part of it, and then I went to the adventurers bundle and put in solar essence to finish up that bundle. And that marks the end of spring, where I got a fair bit of progress made when it comes to the community centre, but I still had 3 issues, the first one being I was very poor, the second one being my farm is still a mess, and finally, I had no animals on my farm yet, so I needed to change things during summer. The first day of summer was a big success for me, so I grabbed the melon seeds I've had for a while in my chest and planted them. Then on the way to Pierre's I found a spicy berry for the summer foraging bundle. I carried on to Pierre's and bought a lot more melon seeds. I then went and deposited the berry in the bundle. I then went fishing for a little while and caught a tuna and deposited that in the ocean fish bundle. I then had to head to Robin's and have her make a silo for me, so I have a way of feeding the animals that I need on my farm. I then went back to my farm and planted and watered the melon seeds I brought. And since I was low on energy, I decided now is the perfect time to go foraging for the other 2 items I need, finding both grapes and a sweet pea, completing the summer foraging bundle on just the first day of summer. Day 30 started with the oak tree sapper sapping the oak resin from the tree for the exotic foraging bundle, and then I headed up to the mushroom cave and got a purple mushroom. Then I went to the community centre and finished off the exotic bundle with the items that I just got. And also thanks to the mushroom cave, I got a few common mushrooms, which is the start of the full foraging bundle, so I just plopped that in and went on with my day. I then headed to the beach where I bumped into Hayley, and she lost a bracelet. I found it not far from her and gave it back to her. Then I went back to the town and Emily adopted a bird that flew into her window. I did a small amount of fishing after, in the river, and caught a sunfish and put that in the river fish bundle. Now all I needed to finish that bundle is a tiger trout. Robin finished the silo overnight, so now when I use the siphon grass, I now get hay for animals to eat. Since that was done, and now money is needed more than ever, I decided to add a second fenced off section for crops. So I spent a little while of the day sorting that out. I added some sprinklers so that I don't need to do nearly as much watering for this section as I do for the top one. And that was pretty much it for the day. I went to the ocean and fished for a bit, catching a tilapia for the ocean fish bundle, so I went to the community centre and handed that in. So now all I needed was a red snapper to finish that one off. After that was done, I thought now was the time to get some chickens for the coop, so I went to Marnie's and bought 3 chickens. Since I had nothing else to do for the rest of the day, I decided now was the time to go back into the mines. On day 33 I went back into the mines and got to floor 80, which means I can start getting gold, so I was just trying to get gold all day. I turned some of the gold ore into a gold bar and headed to the community centre and finished up the blacksmith's bundle. Then I went back into the mines for the rest of the day. Weird green rain was coming down all over the town, creating weird ferns all over my farm. Also, one of the chickens grew up overnight and gave me my first egg, which is some good progress on the animal sides of things. I also pulled extra food out of their coop so I could put 10 hay into Marnie's community bundle. I also had a lot of aquamarine, so I put that into Emily's bundle. I entered Gus's saloon and a lot of the townspeople were in there worrying about the green rain, but it wasn't causing me much trouble, so I decided now was the perfect time to go fishing, catching the red snapper that I needed to finish up the ocean bundle. So once I was done fishing, I went and finished that bundle up, and also put a frozen geode into Demetrius's bundle. The rest of my chickens all grew up overnight, so I should be getting eggs daily now, which will be some good extra money. All I have to do is pet them once a day to get their full use. I got a purple mushroom as well and put that into Demetrius's bundle. I had nothing else to do for the rest of the day, so I hit up the mines to look for the last thing I need to finish up all the boiler room bundles, but I pushed myself too far, getting beaten down by the enemies. Luckily, when I woke up, I only lost my slime. I did some fishing in the lake and caught a chub, which is the second last thing that Demetrius wants for his bundle. So I went and dropped it off, and the last thing he does want, I'm pretty sure I can't even get until winter, so I'm all good on that front. I went back to the mines and got a fire quartz that I've been looking for, and then I got to floor 100 finally, and in the chest there was a star drop waiting for me, raising my energy to 304, meaning I can get more stuff done each day. Before calling it a day, I dropped the fire quartz off at the community centre and finished off the boiler room, which in my opinion is by far the easiest area to finish off. The reward I got for finishing off the boiler room is the minecarts around town, so I can now fast travel from the bus stop to the mines to near Clint's. I really don't think it's a great tool or just upgrade to anything, so I forget to use it all the time. I spent all of day 38 fishing. On day 39, my first batch of summer crops grew, so I harvested them and I also got some oak resin so I could start on the wizard's bundle. So I went over to the community centre and luckily I got 5 gold melons as well, so I placed one of my lower grade melons into the summer crops bundle and then I placed my 5 gold melons into the quality crops bundle. Then I went to the beach and enjoyed the luau for the rest of the day. I also started putting eggs in the mayonnaise maker so I could make more money overnight. I went to Pierre's shop and bought a few tomatoes, blueberries, hot peppers, corn, and poppy seeds. Then I spent the rest of the day planting and watering them. Day 41 was another big harvest day, which earned me over 10k, which puts me in a really good situation. And then I decided melons were the future, so I bought 20 more melon seeds. I then went to the beach and found a sea urchin, which is needed for Emily's bundle, and then just went and dropped that off at the community centre. I maxed out 8 hearts with Hayley, and then went and bought her a bouquet of flowers, so she's now my partner, which does actually nothing for me yet. But there's no rush with that. I then spent the entirety of day 42 just fishing in the ocean. I bought my first sapling and decided to go with an apple sapling, but it would take a little while for it to do anything for me, so the earlier I buy saplings the better. The issue with saplings as well is it can't have anything near it while it's growing, otherwise it will refuse to grow. So I went back to my farm and plopped it down and then cleared out the area around it, and by the time I finished that up I had no energy left, so I had to call it a day there. I met Hayley near Marnie's ranch where we took photos of us and some of the cows. Then I went to the community centre and put a sunflower in Emily's bundle, which is starting to get near completion now. I headed back to the ocean to do more fishing, then I caught a puffer fish, so I could start making progress on a fish bundle I haven't even touched yet. So I went to the community centre to make a start on that, then thought with all this extra cash, why don't I drop it into the vault? So I put 5k in, and then 10k. So now all I needed to do for the vault was drop a hefty 25k into it, then it's all done. I then put the puffer fish into the speciality bundle. After that was done, I went to the mines for a small bit, but not to do any mining. I went to do some fishing, for one fish in particular, and before no time at all, I got it. The ghost fish, which is also needed for the speciality bundle. So I dropped that off and called it a day. I got my first batch of hot peppers, which went straight into the summer crops bundle. Other than that, nothing really happened on day 45. I made my first 2 batches of jelly with my jelly maker things and took that straight to the community centre so I could put that into the artisan bundle. For the rest of the day I decided to clean up the bottom left of my farm until I had nothing left in the tank. I decided I wanted the chicken area to look a bit more aesthetically pleasing, so I added some stone walls down the side of the building, which in my opinion made the building look a little bit nicer. And then when I went into it I had a treat waiting for me. A large egg, something you get when the chickens are warming up to you more from interaction with them, and that meant I could get started on the animal bundle. So I made a beeline straight for the centre to drop it off. I also dropped off a poppy for Gus's chef bundle. The next morning I got a large white egg, and luckily for me that's somehow different than a large brown egg, so off to the community centre with that. Other than that, nothing really happened. My tomatoes finally grew, meaning I only needed blueberries until the summer crops bundle was all finished up. So, you know the drill by now. I dropped it off and for the rest of the day I just stood there fishing. Already halfway through the challenge, and you know what, I'm pretty happy with the progress made so far. I forgot to say, but a few days ago I paid Clint to upgrade my copper axe into a steel one. So that was done today, so I went there to grab it, and once I got it I made my way to the hidden forest, cut down the big log that was in the way to unlock the area. Once that was done, I fished in there for a little bit until I caught a wood skip, so I could now drop that off at the speciality bundle. The blueberries were done, meaning one thing: the summer bundle was officially finished with. For the rest of the day I just went mining. All I'd done on day 52 was carried up cleaning the farm. Day 53 was a huge harvest day for me, and I got so much money, so I went to the vault and put 25k that was needed to finish off the vault. Now that the vault was finished, overnight the weird little square guys worked their magic on the bus, so now I could head over to the desert. I'm actually embarrassed with how long it took me to figure out how to get on the bus. Like, I used to play this game quite a bit back in the day, and I don't think I ever struggled with it then, but yeah, eventually I figured out how to do it and headed off to the desert for the first time. First thing I did when I got there was, to no one's shock, fish. And then I caught my final speciality fish I needed, the sandfish. I also entered the desert mine, and they're like 5 times harder than the regular ones, but after no time at all I went back to Stardew Valley and dropped off the sandfish, finishing off yet another bundle. Since summer was coming to a close, it didn't really matter if my crops died, so I decided now was the perfect time to upgrade my watering can, because refilling it every 5 seconds was becoming so annoying. It was becoming a bigger chore than I was happy to admit, and also watering more than one crop at a time is pretty ideal. Other than that, it was another chill fishing day, but I did upgrade my fishing rod to the best one available, so there was that. The majority of day 56 was in the mines. When I got back to the farm though, I got some maple syrup and dropped it off for Gus's bundle. Then I joined the rest of the town and watched the jellyfish do their thing to mark the end of summer. Summer was a pretty huge success. I got my first lot of animals, I fixed up the bus and minecarts from completing all the bundles in 2 different areas, the boiler room and the vault, and I made some good progress on other bundles. But now fall has landed on us, and I really needed to use the rest of my time wisely, because as soon as fall ends, there's not really much to do in the winter. So really, this was my last month to be very productive. First day of fall started out pretty well, with my watering can getting upgraded by Clint. I was then fishing in the river for a bit and caught a tiger trout, finishing up the river fish bundle on the first day of fall, which is the perfect way to open up a new season if you ask me. I then went to Pierre's and bought a load of pumpkin seeds, so I went to Clint's, grabbed my watering can, and then got planting and watering. I then fished for the rest of the night. I spent all of day 58 just fishing in the ocean, then I started to make my way to the swimming baths and found some blueberries for the autumn foraging bundle. I then go to the swimming baths and chilled there for a bit, then I fished in the mountain lake for a little while before going to deposit the blackberries. Other than that, day 58 was kind of a bust. I spent the whole of day 59 cleaning up the top left of my farm out. The corn all grew overnight and now I had 5 gold quality corn for the quality crops bundle. So I stopped off at the centre and put them in. I then went to Robin's house to get her working on a barn so I could get some cows on the farm. I then headed back to the farm to work on a nice little campfire area to just chill at. And it looks okay, but I didn't get to finish it up unfortunately. I spent all of day 61 looking for the rest of the autumn foraging bundle, but I only managed to find a hazelnut, and then I delivered that to the centre. Whilst I was on my way back to the farm to call it a night, I found a wild plum and dropped that off there as well, completing that bundle, leaving only 1 bundle left in the crafts room. When I did get back to the farm, I made a keg to make some alcoholic drinks. Then I carried up cleaning up some of the areas of the farm for the rest of the night. As soon as I woke up, I headed straight to Pierre's and bought some bok choy, eggplant and yam seeds. Then I got to the farm to plant and water them. Then for the rest of the day I went to the ocean and did some fishing. I quite like how the walls look around the chicken coop, so I decided to add them around the barn now that Robin finished it. Then I added a little pathway to the campfire area. I didn't have much more to do around the farm for the rest of the day, so I headed to the town and fished off the bridge for the rest of the day. During the night as well I got my first level 10 skill, which of course was in fishing, and I chose to make it so my fish are worth 50% more now. I headed to Marnie's to get some cows on the farm and bought 4 cows, and I also bought the last chicken that I needed to fill up the coop. After all that was done I went to the mines to pass some times, but I did get a winter route while down there, so it was nice to get a start on the winter foraging bundle way before winter's even started. I then headed to the mountain lake during the night, and if you remember the thing I said earlier, it's autumn, raining and after midnight. So I managed to catch a walleye to finish up the night fishing bundle, but I waited way too long to stop fishing and that led to me passing out. When I came to, I headed over to the community centre and put the walleye into the night fishing bundle, not only finishing up the bundle but also finishing up the fish tank as a whole. For the rest of the day I headed over to the mines and worked there for a bit. Once I went to bed, the weird little Minecraft block things moved over a boulder that was attached to like a cave area. After heading up to the caves, Willie was just stood there inspecting the water, and then he told me how I can now sieve the water to get some ore and other stuff from the water, like if it was wobbling, and I can tell you with full confidence that I didn't use this a single time. Then I just fished in the mountain for the rest of the day. When I woke up the eggplants grew, so there is more progress towards the full crops bundle. Then I headed over to the centre and dropped the eggplants in. I then went to the desert and went into the mines and found a nice amount of gems in there. Overnight the keg finished brewing, so you know the drill. I dropped it off at the centre for the wizard's bundle. After all that was finished, I went back to Robin's and had her make me another coop for me. I headed to Pierre's and got some wheat seeds and planted them, and then just called it a day from there. All of day 69 I was in the mines. A huge haul of pumpkins grew on day 70, and some sunflowers as well, and in my luck a lot of the pumpkins were gold quality, so I went over to the community centre and put 5 gold pumpkins into the quality crops bundle, finishing that bundle up. I also put a pumpkin into the full crops bundle. I then sold the rest to Pierre and made a large profit, and bought a pomegranate sapling. Then for the rest of the day I was just clearing out an area for my new tree to grow in. I turned some milk into cheese, and then I put the cheese into the artisan bundle. After that I headed up to Robin's and asked her to upgrade my new coop for me, so I could have different animals in there. I then went to my apple tree and added 2 benches under it for some nice aesthetics. Overnight the yams grew, which means I had the last part that I needed for the full crops bundle. On the way to deliver it to the centre, I found out I couldn't because I'm now taking part in the Stardew Valley fair. And to be honest, there was one huge thing around here to stick around for. A star drop for 2,000 silver tokens. So I just grinded the slingshot minigame until I had 2k tokens. And then I bought the star drop, raising my energy levels even higher. I then went and put a display on and got 2nd place. The next morning I finally got to go to the community centre and put the yam into the full crops bundle, finishing that one up. Then I went to the mines for a bit to look for copper because I had more than enough silver and gold, but not a lot of copper weirdly enough. Then I headed back to the farm and carried on cleaning up the area near the tree. The upgrade to the coop was finished up, so I added my walls to the side of it, but Marnie wasn't at her house to sell me the animals that I needed, so I had to wait for that, so I just wandered around for a bit before going to bed. Day 75 started with me tending to the animals like I do every morning, except this time one of the cows dropped me a treat. One of them supplied me with a large milk, so in classic fashion, that went straight into the animal bundle, leaving only 2 items left, and then I went to Robin's house and asked her to upgrade my house for some wood and 10k gold. After that I went to Marnie's ranch again to try and get some animals, and luckily enough she was there this time. So I just bought a bunch of ducks for the new upgraded coop. For the rest of the night I just spent it fishing in the mountain lake. When I woke up after tending to the crops and animals, I decided I needed more iron as I've pretty much ran out entirely at this point. And while doing that, I also found some crystal fruit, so once I finished up in the mines, I dropped that off at the winter foraging bundle, which is a good head start on that whole thing. Then, after that was done, I went to bed. 77 was kind of a dud day. I just went to the mines to get some copper, so I could have a larger amount of sprinklers doing all my watering for me. Other than that, I really didn't do anything. The first thing I woke up to was a pleasant surprise. Robin finished the extension to my house, giving me a little kitchen inside now, which is quite useful, so now I can make meals so I don't run out of energy quickly throughout the day. And also, I have a proper bedroom now. So I went shopping and then I went fishing so I could make a Mackie roll for Gus's chef bundle. The next morning I got some eggs from my chickens and I made a fried egg as well for Gus's bundle. Then I ran off to the community centre and dropped off both the Mackie roll and fried egg, and that was pretty much it for my day. On day 80 all of my yams grew, so I harvested all them and then checked on my ducks. And they decided to leave me a treat, duck eggs, which is one of the last items I needed for the animal bundle. So I picked them up and dropped them off, leaving either large goat milk or wool left to finish the bundle up. I then headed over to Robin's house to get her working on a new barn so I could upgrade it and then get some goat. Now here's the kicker, I had no clue while playing that you could have different animals in the same coop or barn. Something I've done many times back in the day. When I loaded up my old save I saw ducks and rabbits and all that crap in the same coop, so I was like, oh shit. I knew I wasted a lot of money and time there. Then for the rest of the day I just fished. I also had Clint start working on an upgrade for my watering can, which unfortunately I left so late into the 100 days to the point where it won't really affect anything. When I went to bed I found out I made pretty much 20k, which was my best day yet. Spent all of day 81 cleaning up the bottom left of the farm. I went straight to Clint so that I could get my steel watering can, then for the rest of the day I just fished again. The next morning I woke up and carried on cleaning the bottom left of the farm out. Then I went to Robin's and bought some furniture for my farm and tried to decorate some of the areas I've been working on, like underneath the apple tree and the little campfire area. And it proved I'm really not a designer, but I think it adds a little something to the farm at least. Then as per usual I went and fished for a little bit. Then on the evening I went and joined the town on their little version of Halloween. My final day of autumn, so I made a beeline to Robin so that she could upgrade my barn to a big barn so I could get the goats on the go. Other than that, I didn't really do much on this day. I went back up to the fire pit area on my farm and placed some brick flooring around, which improved that area tenfold, and then I did the same around the benches under the apple tree. Then I went to bed calling it a night there and wrapping up autumn. Autumn overall was a big success, getting 2 different types of new animals with the ducks and cows and being extremely close to unlocking the goats for some of their milk. I completed a lot of different bundles. I got the sieve for the water as well, but I did not use that once and I can promise you I will never use it. And I also spruced up the farm with a few little decorations here and there. And the upgrade to the house was really nice. But like I said before, this does mark up the end of all the productive seasons. And now my watering can is officially useless because I cannot grow anything during the winter. The first day of winter was a nice change of pace, where now I didn't have to water or worry about crops from here on out. I went foraging for the rest of the winter foraging bundle and I found a snow yam. I also had this little event with Hayley where she invited me to her dark room, so now I've maxed out all the heart events with her, and I also upgraded my backpack so I had all the possible available slots. Other than that, nothing was really happening on day 85. I found a crocus while having a little explore around and swiftly dropped it off at the community centre, finishing up all bundles in the crafts room. Other than that, I was just making duck mayo to sell. Then I went to bed. During the night, the little square people fixed up the bridge past the mines, which leads to some above ground ore and stuff, which is okay. Nothing great, but yeah, it's okay. Way better than the sieve. I went straight to Marnie's as soon as she was available and bought as many goats as I could, and some heaters so that the animals would be nice and warm during these times, and also so that they don't start to hate me and give me worse produce. Other than that, I kind of just fished through the night. I went straight to the desert to give the skull mines another shot to get some iridium ore, but I hardly got any of it. But I did get a few gems, which was nice, as everyone likes gems. My pickaxe isn't bad as it's steel quality, but in the skull mines it's pretty awful, so it was taking a lot of time and energy to get through any rocks, but that just might be how it is down there. I got a rabbit's foot, which is needed for the wizard's bundle, so I went there and dropped that off for him. I went to Clint shortly after so that he could work on an upgrade for my pickaxe to turn it into a gold pickaxe, then I fished outside of the mines for the rest of the day. I never mentioned this for the whole of the previous 89 days, but I guess now is a better time than any. Over time I've been filling up the museum with different items that I've been finding on my travels, and since I gave over 60 items to the museum now, Gunther came over to my house and gave me a rusty key. Then for the rest of the day I fished. I went to Clint's to go retrieve my pickaxe from him. I then got forced to watch an outfit contest or something that Emily was hosting at Mayor Lewis's place. I then went to the school mines again and spent the entire day there, again not gaining much, but you know, it's just how it is at the school mines. I went to join the village in a fishing contest, and this time I wasn't against children, so I had more of a challenge, but it wasn't enough of a challenge. So I quickly wrapped that up, coming first, getting some items for my fishing rod, and then the day kind of just ended when I got back to my farm. When I woke up, I finally managed to get milk from the goats and make some goat cheese, so I went and dropped that off at the artisan bundle, leaving just one thing left in that bundle. And I don't quite remember when, but at some point I did put a duck feather into Emily's bundle. For the rest of the day, you know, I went to the ocean and fished. Okay, in typical fashion for my videos, I forgot to record a few days of the challenge, but I can almost promise you that I got almost nothing done in these days other than getting up, petting the animals and walking around a bit, speaking to some people and then going back to bed. The one thing I did miss is getting the golden scythe, which I do mention later, but yeah, I did forget to record like 4 days, I think it was. Maybe 5. Anyway, really sorry about that. Luckily, I found out I wasn't recording in a good amount of time and didn't miss the end of the challenge. So I only lost days 94, 5, 6 and 7. So yeah, very lucky I checked. And it's also good that I missed out on the least interesting season, in-game that is, while it is the best looking season as well. Like with the snow, when it's snowing at least. Anyway, yeah. I picked up the recording at the tail end of my journey from the desert, and as you can tell, I got some fuck ugly wallpaper for my house that I wish I got rid of but just didn't for some reason. And I also added a massive blue bear in the house which just fit, and also some art above the bed. The penultimate day, and it started out with me getting my watering can from Clint. So now I have a gold watering can, and again I waited way too long to do this, so I got nothing done. I also got a gold scythe from going across the bridge and going into some kind of mine tunnel maze, and got that, but again, that was unfortunately not recorded, but it wasn't exciting anyway. Other than that, I didn't really do much on this day. I got my large goat milk finally on the final day, but unfortunately none of my fruit trees grew on time, meaning that I just missed out on the artisan bundle. And the only other area I missed was mini stuff on people's bulletin boards, which sucks, but that was only due to my awful planning and lack of knowledge about the game really. For example, I had no clue red cabbage could only be grown in the summer, so I missed out on giving Emily the red cabbage for her bundle. But the actual day 100, it just consisted of me like walking around, speaking to the townspeople, and looking after my animals for the final time, and then I went to bed for the final time. So that's that. This is the first time I've played this game in years, and honestly I've had such a blast with it. I know I'm not great or anything at it, in fact I'm rather crap, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a near perfect game for when it comes to this kind of genre. And there were things in this run that I failed at, sadly, like I wish I got more money or managed to actually get married by the end of the 100 days. Or even got into some of the cooler stuff like getting a mini dinosaur. Hell, I didn't even get pigs or sheep on the farm. But there's no time to worry about that now, because for once my farm didn't look like complete shit. Sure, it doesn't look amazing, but it doesn't look awful. And that is something I'm very happy with. I might do days 100 to 200, who knows, but for now, it's over. And again, I'm sorry it's been a while since I last uploaded, but hopefully I can stick to what I said and get around 4 uploads, maybe 5 in April. I'll try my hardest to make sure that stays true. Anyways, thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video.